Good evening and welcome to the University of Edinburgh Entrepreneurs Keynote. My name is Harrison Winalago and joining us today is Lloyd Haines. Lloyd studied law for his university undergraduate before promptly joining a law firm. He decided to leave this and follow his entrepreneurial passion, transforming his hobby, music, into a tangible business. Haines Co now operates 3 divisions: music, event management, and marketing. Lloyd's going to talk to you about his experience and talking about how you can also monetize your hobby. So Lloyd, I'll hand over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Harrison, and thank you to the Society for inviting me on. I've been really excited for this all week, actually. So I decided really to focus my talk on monetizing your hobby because I think that's incredibly important when it comes to starting your business. But before we delve into that, one thing that I found, particularly from running my own sort of podcast and having guests on, is that it's always good to get a bit of a real deep insight into the guests that I have. I like to delve deep into their entrepreneurial journeys from when they were, yay high, really small and just starting out, because I love finding out how people come up with business ideas before social. And we'll go into that in a minute, which is just opened up the whole new ball game for me. But anyway, so funny enough, my entrepreneurial journey started when I was a kid. And I know lots of people say that's very cliche, but I mean it. Like when I was in school, particularly in primary school even, I was selling anything that I could get my hands on. But one thing that's important to note, and one thing that I found throughout my business journey, and to be honest, only today from actually reflecting on this before jumping on this call did I think of this. All businesses that I started off, no matter how small they are or how big they were, all of them were natural. So very naturally done. They didn't seem too sort of forced. It wasn't like a money grabbing thing. It wasn't a sort of, oh, he's just doing that to make a quick buck. These are very natural things. Now, the examples that I can give you from when I was a kid, right, where I've written them down here. So one of them that I start off with was in primary school, I was selling shootout cards and, like kickoff and World Cup sort of stickers and things like that. Now, when I say natural, the reason for that is that at first, these were just my doublers. I wasn't buying and selling, nothing like that. I wasn't that clued up at that age. I was only like 8 to 10 years old. So what was happening was I'd go to the shop with my mum and my dad, get a bunch of stickers, end up with doublers every time because I only had a few left to fill my book. And I was getting really irate about this, really angry as a kid. And I remember thinking, right, well, I'm just going to sell the stickers and then I'll use that money to purchase more. Little did I realize that I'd ended up being hounded by the whole of the school year for all of these stickers. And I was able to sell normal ones for 10 pence a piece. And then the shinies were going as high as 50 pence. So the markup on those was just insane, considering the pack was just, I think it was about 30, 35 pence at the time for a pack. So that's, I think, around 8 to 10 years old when I started thinking, hang on a minute, I can make money here from something that I enjoy doing, and I can use that money to further enhance that hobby. So at the time, it was collecting stickers, which sounds quite Gary Vee of me, really, doesn't it? And then later on, I changed up again. So after that, I went into comprehensive, into high school. And at that point, I was thinking, right, what else can I do? And I was just obsessed with sweets and chocolates to the point that I had braces for much longer than I think I was supposed to, because I kept on ripping them apart. So chewits would just tend to rip off the brace, right? So I thought, right, okay, let's use my love of sweets and chocolates and start selling those. And I think everyone can say that there was that one guy or girl in their school that was selling this kind of stuff, right? So I remember I'd walk down to Co-op and I'd get a pack of 4 twirls, a pack of 4 Dairy Milks, 4 Twixes and all the rest of it for £1 and sell them for 50 pence each, making £2. So my first business, which I thought, hang on a minute, this is a 200% return. So that was the first time then, after my previous little hobbles, I thought, right, I've got a bit of a knack for this. I quite enjoy it. And I loved walking there, even in the rain. And it was a mile and a half away, this shop. I wanted to go there, not to Spar, which was on the doorstep. So I started getting this idea of keep the costs low and sell in abundance, but never outlay too much cost. So I'd walk there every day rather than purchase on a Monday. I'd walk there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and literally just get my stock for the following day, not for the week. So I was, as a youngster, I'm even thinking of these things constantly. How can I monetize what I love doing? And that's why I think that was probably my first teaching, actually, is being as natural as you can to the process. My next business then, after that, was when I was in college. I found a handle on Twitter, and this is when social started coming in. So before that, all these businesses were purely sort of face-to-face. You know, there's no sort of online selling and anything like that. There wasn't Snapchat. I couldn't tell everyone the night before that I had these products. I just had to go in the morning with a load of sweets, load of cans of Coke and things like that, and just kind of scream it from the rooftops that, right, Lloyd Haines is selling again. And that's literally what would happen. When I was in college, that's when I started thinking, right, I need to use social more. So when I think about the difference of using social now to then, it's massively different. But how I used it then was that I found that there was a handle on Twitter that was Nike Gymwear, just at Nike Gymwear, and I couldn't believe that Nike hadn't taken this handle. So it might even still be on there. So I put it on. I only had like 100 or so followers. I started buying and selling Nike products off different Chinese websites. Don't get me wrong, 100% authentic, although they never came in a box. So I'd have to order them in, wrap them up, and then ship them off, basically. The problem with this business is that whilst the market was okay, like £25 a pair, and all of my friends were wearing Nikes, I wore Nikes all the time. I was in the sports academy, the football academy, so I was always wearing Nikes. So I was able to sell to my friends. The only problem with this business was that it was a 30-day wait time. But I started to realize at this time, you know, 16-ish, started to realize, hang on a minute, I can start using social to scale quicker than face-to-face. So I started realizing the power of that. Still unsure how to, you know, bring it into my other love, or my main love, which was music. And at that point, I wasn't studying music or anything like that. It's good to know that my move into some things that I loved and truly close to my heart came much later. And if you see my speech at colleges and things like that, you'll notice that that's a common trend in what I talk about, is doing something that you love and not something just for the monetary value. If you chase monetary value, you'll never be fulfilled. Whereas if you chase fulfillment, then the monetary value will follow. That's something I've always stood by. And for me at this point, music was so prevalent in what I was doing every day and listening to every day and studying and playing guitar constantly. I wasn't writing my own beats at that point, so it's quite a different sort of musician that I was then. But I was still able to monetize my hobbies, and I started realizing, right, every time I've enjoyed something, I found a way of making a profile or making a little community in a school and bringing everyone that same love and connecting with them on that basis only. You know, people that didn't even necessarily like me, or I didn't get on with them for whatever reason, you know, they'd still come up and want to purchase a Twix off me. And I'd be like, right, okay, so business can form this sort of common ground among individuals that wouldn't have otherwise have sort of delved into each other's pathways. So that's when this business sort of orientated mindset kept flooding in. And I think I'm just thinking now as I'm sort of brainstorming, but the only time then that I think that I sort of strayed away from that was when I had a birthday party. And the only time I remember peeing off a bunch of people and realizing that business can stab you on the ass just as quick as it can make a buck for you was when, for my 18th birthday, I tried charging £2 a band to get in rather than just doing free invitations. And I think at that point, I thought, right, hang on a minute, I've calmed things down a minute. I can't monetize absolutely everything. So that was a big lesson for me in that, right, okay, people don't want to pay for my parties. They want to pay for a product. They want me to give them a product or a service, some sort of tangible means that they can take away with them and show their friends. A party wasn't that, right? So at that point anyway, but I still love music, and I was thinking, right, how the hell do I monetize music? And then naturally it followed then a bunch of DJs came together. At this point I was DJing quite avidly. And a bunch of DJs had come together and said, right, why don't we form an event, sort of a night? And due to my fact that I'd tried it before, and yeah, it went well, I made a little bit of money and paid off all the security and the club hosting for my 18th party. That was the first time I ever tried that model. Obviously it wasn't a big upkeep sort of at all. So for that reason, I was thinking, will I be able to do this again? So I dabbled, before jumping in, I dabbled with a lot of DJ work. I remember my grandfather actually purchased my first lot of speakers for me, and I had to pitch him a proposal. It was crazy, and bless him, now I can hardly talk to him because he's declining. But years ago, he was very on it, and I remember him writing me a letter, and he said, Lloyd, I still got it kept in a room somewhere, but he said, Lloyd, I believe in you. You've presented a sort of good cases to why you think that you can make some cash off these bookings, these DJ bookings. So I'll warrant the £500 or whatever it was outlay for your speakers. Off you go. So there I was there. I had the speakers, I had a pair of decks and a laptop that was on its way out. I think it had about 3 months left in it, and I knew that it did. So I downloaded a bunch of songs, a bunch of tracks, and non-illegally, by the way. Please support people's music. And at that point, then I was thinking, right, okay, so I've got these things in place now. I've got the actual assets themselves. How do I make them make money for me now? How do I monetize this hobby and have a good time doing it? So I started putting out mixtapes, and this is the power of social media, right? Once you find that little niche, whether it's making cakes or a client of mine, for example, which I'll talk about in a minute, but a client of mine makes shoes. So if you make shoes, if you make absolutely anything in the world, if you make music or any form of art, anything at all, you putting that on socials is you putting yourself to the world, and it can be a very daunting process. But without doing that, I would never, even that one mixtape, I'm thinking about this now, it's kind of blowing my mind even thinking about it, but that one mixtape that I put out at the age of between 16 and 18, that I had to gear myself up for and train up for, because I kept on doing it wrong. And then eventually I put it out there. That's when the business started coming in. It was on SoundCloud. I put it up on there. It only had less than 1,000 plays. It wasn't anything incredible, but from me doing that, I was able to generate my first ever private booking. And I remember charging just £70 for that. It was about 6 hours, and I stood there, but playing more background music rather than being first, front and foremost. And from doing that, then I started thinking, right, I can start doing this more. And as the testimonials came in, I'll start charging more. So you can tell at each sort of business, I'd say inverted commas, because the businesses before this were no longer businesses really, were they? But any sort of thing where I was giving a service or a good and then getting some money back, I saw it as some sort of a brand. So with all my other brands from when I was a kid, I hadn't really taken into account the testimonial process as much. When I brought in this sort of DJ model, I realized the power of the spoken word. So again, that's why social came into play. Social media kept on coming into play constantly, because as soon as I'd put a post out saying I'm available on this day, who needs an 18th party DJ, a 21st party DJ, my name was going about in all these colleges and all these schools. And eventually I noticed that the age range was getting bigger and bigger. So I was 18 years old playing for like 30-year-olds and 30th and 40th and so on and so on. And then eventually I was doing anniversaries and then an occasional wedding, which was very daunting for me. But I realized that those premiums could go up based upon the testimonials that I received the next day. I message them the next day on Facebook, hey, thank you so much for booking me. Let me know what you thought. And they just ping a message back and say, yeah, really enjoyed it. You were amazing. You did this, you did that. I'd repost that. And from that, I get a few more bookings. And it just spiraled on and on and on. It was just this domino effect of Facebook post after Facebook post. Now, don't get me wrong. Back then, it wasn't a pay-to-play regime that it is now. And organic reach was so much higher. So it was somewhat easier to sort of, get in that market sooner. However, it did really teach me the importance of keeping that customer happy and keeping them there. And now I'm proud to say that in my DJ business alone, which is the music side of the business, I'm able to, I have worked with families who every single one of their relatives has used me for some sort of anniversary or wedding, etc. So when all these DJs around Swansea area, it was at the time in Wales, when they all came around and said, right, we want to make an event, I was thinking, yeah, like for sure. Like I maybe got it a little bit wrong with my birthday, but I think I can get it right this time if it's on a private company basis rather than, me saying, come to my party and pay for it. It just didn't make sense. So I jumped on the event promotions thing, didn't really understand it, just sort of got the gist that I'd play and somebody else would play and we'd charge on the door, didn't really understand logistics. I remember the first event that I ever hosted had about, I think it was shy of 150 people paying like £10 each, but even so, it was like, £1,000 plus. And I'm thinking, right, what the hell do we do this? Like, this is insane. I think we barely broke even. We had a headliner, who cost like 500 and the rest. So I started realizing that I had to outlay these costs in abundance when it came to event promotions. And anyone here that's even like toyed with that idea, you'll know that, with event promotions, you're outlaying a big cost initially, and it is seen as quite a risky sort of thing. So that's what I did when it came to the first events, and I kept on scaling those. And by scaling those, I mean simply a case of starting off really small. So the £400 headliner would be a cash on the night job rather than outlaying, beforehand. After that, then we went up to like an £800 headliner. the venue stayed the same. We kept the venue really sweet. We made sure the lighting was minimal because it was like a dark techno event. So I was like, right, save costs there. We put graphics on the screen as to which DJ is playing and when. We gave all the DJs 10 tickets each to sell. And on top of that, they could buy them online. And by doing that, that's another thing that I noticed then, is that not only by putting out events on social media and generating that traction and making hype every week on a Monday, I'd be like, who's excited for 3 weeks time? Who's excited for 2 weeks time? Check out this track, which I'm thinking of dropping at the event, and constantly doing that. Not only was that helping, but also by buying into people's own circles. And that's something largely same as Harrison has done here today. You buy into that circle just by bringing a guest on. So by me bringing these headliners on, I was tapping into their audiences. These headliners that have like 2,000-3,000 followers. They're jumping on for a show with me, and automatically my name's getting a little bit bigger just because they're on the same artwork as me, or I'm on the same artwork as them rather. And not only that, but every single customer that came through the doors, they've got 5 friends or 10 friends back home, which may not be there on the night, but they're able to tell those people, And I realized the power of micro influencing. Like these days we talk about influencing. We say influencing is like, somebody who's able to recommend you to go to boohoo.com and purchase like whatever top for 20% off and things like that, right? But to me, like the influencing that I love is on the micro scale. It's not the macro, but it's the micro scale. I'm not talking about like Usain Bolt influencing you to join Virgin or anything like that. I'm talking about the real small kind of style, which is like one person is pleased, they're bringing 5 people. And it just goes on and on and on. And to this day, with my digital marketing business, I've kept the same kind of ethos. And so far, in a year and a half, coming up to 2 years, in that time, we have never spent money outlaid on promoting ourselves as a marketer. So it's kind of a mad thing to grasp, but we haven't spent any marketing money to get marketing clients, which is nuts. Like we will do that in the next 3 months. That is something that I'm looking to do, but it kind of blows my mind when I think about that, because it just shows that purely keeping your business predicated upon a solid system that you're confident with, that people will buy into and tell their friends about. That's the most important thing. Tell their friends about. That's everything. Like our business is purely 100% of the revenue is purely being predicated upon solid reviews, and those people going and tell a friend and getting a referral fee for that. That's it. So when I started realizing that in events, that's why I brought it over later in my life. But events was the same thing. They were all buying into the brand, the techno brand that it was at the time. And then they're all influencing their friends to come. And eventually from 100 people, then we're getting 400 people and 500 people. Since then, I'm now running events under the events division of the business for 1,000 people plus, which include various headliners and big shows. So that's a bit about like sort of the business and the structure. To touch upon what Harrison said with regard to the law side of things. So whilst I was doing all these businesses, I was in uni training up to be a lawyer. And the reason for that is purely that I felt like I needed a plan B all my life. And it was just crazy thing to think about. Like now, I hope I'm not going against any of your lecture teachings, but plan Bs just, to me, just don't exist now. Like I personally, I don't agree with them. They just don't work for me. It's just me as a person. If I've got a plan B there, naturally I'll start edging my way more towards there. Whereas when you've got a plan A and it's the only thing that can work, like you'll work twice as hard. Like I'll stay here all day, every day, like happily, So back then I was like, no, I need a plan B. I'm going to be a lawyer. That's the thing. I'm going to be a barrister. We're going to do all these cases, then do music on the side. And everyone I met with kept on saying to me, oh, one day you're going to have to decide. One day you're going to have to pick. I just thought, nah, no chance to talking crap. Like it's not going to happen. And I soon realized that like you can really burn yourself out. And I was just burning myself out hard. Like I was literally DJing 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. Go to bed for 4 a.m. and I'd be up by 7. And that's no exaggeration. That's how hard it was, to be up by 7 for work, and then in the office talking to clients that I didn't really want to deal with anyway. When I first realized the power of marketing specifically was when I was working with the marketing department at the law firm, and they ran a Google Ads campaign, right? And I was at the time fronting the entire not digital marketing, sorry, the data protection team. So I was the one fronting that. Now, from this campaign that I worked with them on, they were bringing in calls left, right, and center. And in just like a month or two max, they were able to bring in a few $100,000 in prospective revenue for those new clients. And I realized, right, that's just off Google Ads alone. So that started to make me think, okay, so I should start dabbling with marketing more. On top of this, then I'm still running the events business. So I'm kind of like my feet are in two places at once. So it did get a little bit confusing at times, but I was trying to find synergy in everything that I was doing. And I realized that if I, keep a close eye on these social media marketers upstairs in the law firm and see what they're doing, if I can implement those methods into my events practice, then, world's my oyster. So I started doing Facebook ads for all of my events. And what I quickly found is that I was able to sell out venues which I hadn't even been at before, or where the headliner was a little bit iffy and I didn't think that they would be able to sell the tickets themselves. I was starting to able to do that and to build, more importantly, brand awareness that was just irrefutable, could not be beaten. It was just a solid brand awareness structure that dominated the city at the time. So eventually I thought, right, forget this. I'm making myself ill. I'm so stressed with all these multiple different avenues. And my dad was the first one to turn around to me, which is rare because I know a lot of parents, and you guys will know, a lot of parents turn to their entrepreneurial sons and daughters and they think, oh God, what are you doing? We'd rather you just get a normal job. But my parents, luckily, have always been very, very supportive of my journey. And my dad turned around to me and he said, you look ill, get out of there. Like, do it Monday, leave. And sure enough, on the Monday, I wrote to them and I said, right, I'm leaving. It did turn into a bit of a bust up. I don't even think I could get a reference from them these days, but oh well. But then I went then and pursued my events promoting sort of work, and that was the only division of the business at the time. At that point, funny enough, it was under another name. It was a partner of mine at the time. It was Haines Global Events, and we ran events in 20 to 25 UK cities, which was just insane. And somehow through Facebook ads that I was running, I was able to sell out most of these places without even visiting them before. Like Liverpool was amazing, like Milton Keynes was good, all these different places which I hadn't been to before, Bristol and stuff. So I started realizing, like, there's real scope for digital marketing here. Why don't we start doing it for clients? And this is where it gets fun, right? So the first client then that we brought on, incidentally, was due to the fact that I went to a workshop. I went to a social media marketing workshop. It was called Getting Started with Facebook Ads. Now, bear in mind, I've been running ads for myself, my own music for years. But at this point, I thought, right, if I go to one of these, I'll learn how they sell. So I went there, sat there, pretended. It was a bit like a secret shopper, quite funnily enough. I pretended to be a total novice, sat there just sort of on the nod and went, all right, okay, cool. And at the end then I sort of pitched it to a couple of people next to me. I went, I said, we're an agency, just to let you know. And although that guy who just presented this workshop for free, although he's just told you to do it for £2,000 a month, forget that, we'll do it for 300 quid. Like, I just said it off the bat. I just went in, I thought, nothing to lose, let's do it. So we did that and somehow ended up going, it was run by this office actually, but ended up walking from the offices that they were hosting the event across the road to a coffee shop. And from there, I signed up my first 2 clients, which was just mind-boggling. And one of those first clients was a naturopathic school, which is like spiritual healing and wellness and all the rest of it. And from there, I started getting on with them with their Facebook ads campaigns, and they included what I call 7 points of contact. Now, this is good information, right? So 7 points of contact is something that I tend to follow with all my marketing work, regardless of the industry, okay? So I do 3 brand awareness video campaigns, 3 value-driven campaigns, and then a call to action thereafter. So my brand awareness would be who the client is, what they do. They're telling the camera, they're telling their audience, about their entrepreneurial story, anything, where their brand idea came about, how it came about, why it did, and all the rest of it, that kind of thing, their journey, if you like. Then going into their value-driven campaigns, then they were things like, why they do what they do and how they do it, their testimonials, their accolades, their accomplishments. And then the final point of contact, the 7th point, was the lead generation form. Now, at this point, the events were going well, but there were some bad ones, don't get me wrong. So we didn't have like big production costs to put all these amazing marketing videos out there on social media. And I'm thinking, I thought then, and a part of mine at the time, he said the same thing. We both stood there and were saying, what if we just do these on our phones and just give it a shot? Because the more authentic, the better. And you'll find that, like here, there's no fancy backdrops, nothing cool about this. Like, it's purely just raw, real, relatable, valuable content. And that's what I love about social. Any company that tries to make it too prim and proper can often lose sight of what's important, and their ethos isn't actually projected forward. So with a lot of these clients, that's what I was doing. It was all from a camera. I was literally just there with a broken phone as it is now. I was just there filming, and straight away within a few hours, I'd edit on like Splice, do a couple of words at the bottom, or subtitles at the bottom. Sorry, a couple of subtitles. No graphics, nothing fancy. Chop it up a little bit and put it up. I think the first campaigns weren't even chopped up, so they'd have the ums and ahs in it that the client was saying. So totally poor production, but amazingly valuable content, right? And from doing that for 3 months, we were able to bring the client off one ad, a lead generation ad that cost £543 to run. Our first testimonial proved itself worthy because they actually were generated £60,000 in extra revenue from that one advert costing £500. And that's when I realized the power of ads, and really the power of raw video and photos. Like, that was it. And from that, we just kept building, kept on building. And now we're in a position, I'll sum this up by saying now we're in a position where we've had the rebrand. It's now Haines Co. Partner of mine has left. So we're totally diversifying our products even more. We now roll out everything from brand to social to web, including SEO and Google Ads and all the rest of it, through to, we're about to launch a VR product as well, which is amazing. So we turn into a full one-stop shop for all digital. And on top of that, I've been able to bring my events under the same roof. And then music has been able to brought under the same roof as well, in the sense that, my music has now got 4 record labels, soon to be 5, 4 record labels, all under the same roof of Haines Co. So despite diversifying over years and years and years, I'm 24 years old now, and despite running all these businesses from right when I was a kid, they finally make sense. And it's only in the last few months, they finally make sense and they come all together under one roof. So that's sort of my insight into how the power of social media really can catapult your startup, can diversify your startup, and just bring things under one roof later on down the line. So I hope that gives you some insight into what I do and what the business does. I'll ask Harry now to jump on with any sort of questions, which I'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do, especially the VR sort of there. Anyway, so questions. We've got a few. I'll start off with this one. Do you feel that your law degree is valuable, even though you no longer practice law?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you exactly why. Contracts is the main thing for me. I'm more than happy to say, although I think most agencies wouldn't, that there's been a couple of times where there's been bust-ups with clients with regards to certain things, or just lack of sort of synergy, lack of cohesion between the two of us, in which case I've tried to find appropriate exit strategies that accommodate for the both of us. Now, that can be difficult when there's money on the line, for the reason being that if a client signs in for 6 months and say they do 4 months and there's 2 months left, and they say, nah, we're done, that's it. Thank you very much for making us this money, but we're done now, we're out. My company is then left with 2 months of prospective revenue takers, which have just gone out the window. So all of our projections are just off. That's dangerous. And you'll know that because when you've got payrolls to meet, when you've got office space you got to cover, when you've got all these kind of stuff, that all these costs being outlaid constantly, you have to make sure that your projections are near enough to spot on as possible, right? Easier said than done, yeah. So when it comes to law degree, what that really taught me, not only was it customer care, customer service, client longevity, but also being able to have really, really solid agreements that work in the benefit of not just the client, but also for you. Not one-sided, but just very, very detailed, very thorough, and very clear in the obligations on you and them. Because not only that, not only does it come into play when it comes to recuperating money that they don't want to pay, which does happen. It does happen. Not every single client is fully willing and available. But it also means that your obligations, you know them, and the client knows them, and there's no overstepping any marks, So all of my agreements will detail the services, any services that do not pertain to the agreement. So, the fact that I've got so many different sectors underneath this brand, I have to make sure that each contract is relative to that specific industry. So I don't want to be contracting the client to one thing, but that contract allowing them to nip into my music side of the business for free work, or the event side for free work. So I have to make sure that despite them all being under one roof, the agreements pertain to the single-handed division where they need it. So that would be the main thing really, is court cases and agreements. That'd be the main things.
Okay, that's really cool. We've got a similar question along that thing.
Yep,
did your law degree make your startup succeed faster? So now we're talking about pace, like whether actually having a degree makes you progress.
Yeah. I'd say perhaps it does in my way that I deal with clients. As you can probably tell, I'm very energetic, I love talking about this stuff. I could talk to you guys literally all day, every day. Like, I literally love talking about this stuff. So when I'm talking to a client, I'm able to adopt that lawyer sort of mentality in the way that I position myself, the way that I talk to the client, prospective client rather. And yeah, I think that the way that I sort of hold myself might have helped. Well, I say might have, it definitely did. It helped itself along through not only the studying of law, but also the actual practice. Like, bearing in mind that the study itself is one thing, but actually practicing is another. And that goes with you guys and studying entrepreneurship, that you'll have all the tools at the ready, but when you're actually in the firing line, it can be totally daunting and can really, really test you. So when I was lawyering, a lot of the stuff that I was actually delivering to clients wasn't necessarily what I have learned before. Like, the data protection stuff, totally brand new. And that shows the power of not just social, but the power of internet, the power of digital, because without that acceleration, I wouldn't have really have dealt with the data protection stuff as much, because there wouldn't be as many data protection claims as there are. You know, GDPR is a relatively new idea that all agencies have to account for, which really leads me on to another advantage, is that I already knew all of that. So all of our processes are very GDPR compliant. They're very, very robust. We have a robust data document management system. So I do still have that lawyer mentality. You know, the way that I sort of keep my files is very lawyerish. You know, I have like a cloud-based system that is very, very alphabetized, very, very OCD, if you like. You know, every single client has got all these different subfolders that go on and on and on and on. Whereas when I talk to sort of freelancers or other marketeers or anything like that, what you find is that a lot of them tend to, I'm not going to say that it's up in the air at all, but, you know, they keep it on one desktop, and if that desktop dies, and it's gone, you know. So I think that for me, it did sort of speed up in the sense of my sales approach. But I think you guys, you know, the fact you're studying entrepreneurship just shows to me, or in the society, if not studying it, that it shows to me that you've already got that edge. There's salesmen and there's entrepreneurs, but if you can find a synergy between the two, then you're really rolling.
Yeah, that's a really great answer, actually. Very interesting.
Cool.
Something on a very different topic now. So
sure.
How has the coronavirus affected your business, and what are you doing to control these effects?
Okay, so very good question. With this one, probably been the most stressful time since starting up. Now, bear in mind, there's some little aspects of the story which I left out earlier, but I'll bring them in now. So how this COVID sort of hit us was nearly as bad as when our first lot of events started going down. Now, initially, all the events were going up and up and up. And bear in mind, this was the one single-handed only division of the business. So for that reason, 24/7 time was invested into that, nothing else. However, when we started doing, say, 2 or 3 events a week rather than 1 a week, bear in mind, these are traveling to Liverpool, Manchester, like all these different places, Cumbria, and back to Leeds and everything. I remember on the Easter week, we did around 5 events in 4 days, and we burnt out, lost 3,500 on one show, lost a few thousand on another, made 1,000 back. It was just terrible, like really, really badly done. And I was, you know, leading this thing, and I was just thinking, right, I'm getting really beaten up here. Almost as bad as I have been recently. Like, the stress levels in the office for the last few months, like, you wouldn't even begin to imagine, but back then was much harder. And I think that if I hadn't gone through that experience, I'd find COVID a lot harder than what it was, right? But what kept me going is that not only, you know, inspirational speeches all the time on YouTube and things like that, but also going to a lot of seminars and talking to a lot of people in the business which are much more excelled than me. So I'm not sure if you guys watch The Apprentice at all, but season 10, winner. I think he was season 10. Mark Wright now runs one of the biggest agencies in the UK for digital marketing called Climb Online. He was at an event not too long ago and I spoke to him. I asked him a question and I said, I'm running an agency myself, you know, what's your journey been like? Like, be honest, like, what's it been like? And he just admitted, he said the first 2 years were absolute hell. He said, hardly made any money. He said, after that, then finally I was into the swing a bit. Finally, I was getting the clients and they were sticking around. That was the important thing, not just getting them, but sticking around. The thing is that starting up is the hardest thing in the world. And I think if we hadn't learned to diversify and pivot in those early stages and go, right, these events were going amazing, but now they're taking a dip. We need to do another business ASAP. Let's launch the digital marketing and run that. If we hadn't done that, then probably we would have gone under. I say probably, definitely would have. And as a result of that, the events came back, which is funny because what you find is a business will go down. If you implement other ideas or other products, those products which were initially falling can end up coming up and they don't really plateau thereafter. They kind of just keep going. And it's just because when you're seen to diversify as a business, you become trusted as a sort of innovative provider of goods or services, whatever it may be. So that was the main thing for us. That was the hardest stage. Going on to COVID, very hard again. Now, the reasons were different. It wasn't so much because something wasn't working this time. Everything was working. For us, the problem was, of course, the fact that clients had to stop. And the reason that they had to stop was they were lacking money, they were lacking the funds, which was inevitable. Now, the craziest thing is that there's, I think it's 360 billion, isn't it, pounds that were invested into the UK for the economy. The crazy thing is that the Wales had 42 billion of that. Don't quote me on that, but around that, Wales had that. And my business has not had a single penny of that for various reasons. You know, not VAT registered, not VAT exempt. There's a load of other things. So now they've launched the startup grant, so hopefully we'll be able to get something from that. It'll only be a couple of grand, which doesn't actually cover any sort of revenue that we've lost. But I think the main thing is pivoting again. So how I pivoted this time was, rather than launching another sort of division, I just brought all my brands under one roof. And I thought, right, forget this. No more Haines Global, which is totally fine. It's a mutual agreement with my partner. Off he went. I brought everything under one roof as Haines Co, which is a relatively recent idea. So much so, not even the social launch yet. Yet we're still onboarding clients by the week. So it's almost like starting again, but not seeing it as starting again, if you understand what I mean. So learning to pivot, learning to expand on the business through times of turmoil, which is very daunting. But diversifying. So, you know, like I said to you then, Harrison, you know, we're bringing in VR concepts. So clients will be able to get VR packages. They'll be able to, you know, grow on their web sort of packages from just web and design and development. They can now go with us on SEO and Google Ads. So it's sort of learning that. The event side of the division, you know, that division is not going to come back into prevalence for the next 6 months, probably, maybe even more, because with COVID guidelines and restrictions, I can't see it. So my main thing for COVID has been pivot, absolutely pivot. And that's what will happen to you guys. You know, the economy goes up and down, up and down, up and down. It's literally ebbs and flows. And we would do this, we'd do it every 75 years or so. So we would do this further from 2008, 2009. Like, this is the worst depression since the 1930s. And it just so happens that I'm only in my second year of this startup. So you couldn't write it, but it's part of the process. And as stressed as I do get at times, you just have to learn to laugh like a crazy person, and learn to pivot. So that's exactly what I've done. I have my first staff member back in this week. We sat down and the whiteboard's there, I'm looking at it now, and I've listened to all the products that we're doing. And I said, right, what else can we do? I've just added on them. And I'm thinking, right, when can we launch this one? What about this one? So using the time really to not just pivot, but also think of procedures, practices in place, and product. Like, learn to hone in on your product, to diversify it, to better it, but also extend it through the introduction of other sort of arms of the business. Does that answer it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm loving positivity. I'm glad that
awesome.
Adapting and still going. Another one. So do you think without social media, you wouldn't be reaching levels where you are right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, in my view, although it's a harder time than ever to sort of build a brand, in the sense that there's a lot of competitors out there, it's also the easiest. So it is a very double-edged sword kind of system in place. because there are so many people, so many businesses being made every single day. Like if you go on Rapid Formations now, this has never been a thing, but in the last few years, you go on rapidformations.com, I think it is now, you can make a business for like £15. It's done, dusted. You even get, I think you even get like a domain and stuff. Like it's just insane. So that was never around before. Social, exactly the same. You could never post images of your clothing and then be able to tag the product, and then people click that and then they're automatically on the website and they can purchase like seamlessly. It's constantly evolving, and that's why me positioning myself as a digital marketer means that I've got to be on top of all of that. Like I can't just be, I can't just run a baking shop and not be in tune with the constant innovation that's happening all around us. Like because I've actually positioned myself as a marketer and market leader, I like to say. For that reason, my music businesses and my events businesses have to band. So it's funny because yes, social media has absolutely catapulted me, absolutely 100%. But at the same time, it keeps me massively on my toes, But going back to what I said earlier, the first ever lead gen campaign that I ran was purely off videos made on a mobile phone. And it doesn't even, it has to be a smartphone, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have to be like the top of the range kind of stuff. Like lots of people seem to bog themselves down with that. I need to get this certain camera, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like my product images need to be pristine. One of my clients called Northern Lights Customs, you can have a look at them on Facebook. I think you should actually, because it's just such a really side hustly Gary V style, business, which I just love working on because of how mad the whole concept is. She literally she had enough of buying shoes off the shelves, and she said, right, they're lacking customization. They're very bland and boring. They don't fit our needs. We're into Disney, we're into Marvel, we're into DC, Tim Burton and all that kind of stuff. We want to be able to design our own. So she made one for her sister. That ended up catapulting. She's now doing, I won't actually say, but she's doing thousands in revenue a month purely from the comfort of her own home. She homeschools her kids, and she's a single mom doing all of these. Like it just blows my mind. This kind of like what social can do, and that all happened from making a Facebook page called Northern Lights Customs. At the time, I think it's called Cinderella's. It's just a very budget logo at the time. We've got to update loads of stuff. It's a budget logo at the time. She's running a couple of adverts, didn't really know what she was doing. She's now got like 70,000 paid likes. She's got 5,000 Messenger subscribers, which means that they're really invested. They want to be getting mails off her every day, which is just insane. E-commerce brands don't do that. Like you wouldn't really subscribe to an ASOS messenger platform because you wouldn't want them in your messenger. So the fact that she's an e-commerce brand, I've been able to put her as a market leader for custom shoes purely from Facebook is just insane. And now she's gone on TikTok. She's now doing videos on there and showing how the process happens, gets a plain shoe, clicks, and then boom, it's done. So I think that like social is just so important. I know I keep going back to that, but it's just so important. And the other thing really is like, again, doing something natural. With that client example, so natural. The fact that she said, I've had enough of buying products off the shelves. Let me get something for my sister that she wants to wear. Same thing with me. At the very first ever business I did ever was, I've got a bunch of doubler football cards. Let me sell them. Let me get some money back so I can purchase more. Like, think of natural things. And if you're having to overthink it, it's likely not natural. Like a lot of divisions that I come up with are very, although they're very diverse, they are naturally done. It's just part of the movement, and I'd love to say that in the next few years that there'll be 5-6 divisions and more, but I don't see a point of putting a sort of value on it, because that will happen. And if it does happen, it happens,
Yeah, definitely speak volumes about the value of social media, like going from nothing to that level so quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So we have time for 2 more questions. We'll start with this one. Yeah. Looking back at your own experiences in the early days, what is one piece of advice you would give students thinking about starting their own company?
The main thing is resilience. It does get very hard. Like there's a lot of times I'm sat here with the joyous expression, I've had a good day. It's been a very stressful day, but a very good day. You get really bad ones, and I mean really bad ones. And when you're going at this alone, which a lot of my businesses have been, I've been a lone wolf. There's been other ones where I've had partners. I particularly work better alone, so when alone, I've got staff. I think that when you're a leader, it can get lonely at the top. and not enough people are talking about this, by the way. Like, not enough CEOs talk about this. I see it on LinkedIn once in a blue moon, but it can get very lonely at the top. So my thing is really persistence. Building a team which you have really, really good connection with. That synergy that I talk about is so important. Like, I talk about good vibes a lot, and I know it's a very like broad term, but I generally vibe off people. Like, and that goes with clients as well. If I'm talking to a prospective client, I'm not vibing with them, I kind of just like take a step back and leave and just sort of advise them on what to do rather than me take it on, because I think vibes are so important. Like, you've got to love what you do. Like, if you don't love what you do, then it's just, there's no point. Like, there's literally, I can't explain that. There's no point. Like, every single division that I do, I love. I would happily work on it, like, period, for free. Like, and I mean that hand on heart, in the sense that so long as this is paid for, this office or my rent, that's it. Like, I'm the least materialistic person that you'll find in the world. I just want to make a difference on people. And if you've got that kind of mentality, don't get me wrong. If you want a fast car and stuff, that's cool. That's you. Like, be yourself. But if you are really authentic with what you want, and and you're not sort of lying about it, then naturally it will happen for you, But persistence, resilience. When it comes to being analytical, I think a lot of the time it's a trial and error process. A lot of people sort of think business plan, and I know that that's quite a weird thing to say to you guys. I know that in an entrepreneurial society, you're probably going to be banging on about getting business plans together and stuff like that. I love them. They're great. So personally, I've rarely done them myself, which I know is a crazy thing, because if I wanted investment, then I'd have to go and actually do that. But a lot of my things are trial and error. I'll put them out and I'll sort of go, right, what clients would be interested in this? Or if it's in the record label, sort of the music sector, I'll be like, right, what kind of music is going to sell? What kind of music is going to make a difference on people? With my DJ mentorship platform that I've got now called doyoudj.com, with that, it's a membership package. So that's my first time trialing a membership platform. So, a subscription-based model. And the reason why is that I think that is the next wave. I do really believe that scaling a subscription-based model is somewhat easier or more systemic than doing it otherwise. I'd rather start the month on a positive rather than start the month on a zero or a minus and have to build up. So it's almost like a mental thing for me. So understanding your mental and your mindset and your mental health is absolutely prudent to you performing well. And knowing when to take a break. Like, let's not forget that. Like, I don't really agree with, I love watching Tony Robbins and all the rest of them online, but this whole thing of just work until he dies sort of regime, it's unrealistic. Like, know when to take a break. I know when to chill out for a day, go to the studio and make beats all day, just make music all day. And I may not put it out there, it may not even happen, but it may not be my day for it, but it's just having that day out and telling the clients, right, Lloyd's out of office today. I've got no problem saying that. So, and that's a broad answer, but it's sort of being resilient, knowing your mindset, knowing your mental, and working on that. Building a team around you, which works with you, not against you. Not micromanaging them as well is very important. Letting them flourish in the way that they want. A lot of the staff members that I get in the office here, I tend to ask them first and foremost, what do you want to do? Not just, what can you do for me all the time? It's not me. I say, what do you want to do? And what can I do for you? Like, what kind of opportunity can I bring to you that another employer wouldn't? That would be my main advice on that point.
Sure. So in your response to that question, you touched on the important characteristics such as resilience, awareness, this internal passion. So our last question is a little bit more tangible, is discussing what is the most important skill, like an actual thing you can develop to be a successful entrepreneur.
Okay, so most important skill these days, I think, has changed. I think years ago, I'd say decades ago, I'd say it was very, very important, if not the utmost importance, to be on it with your financials and to have real good financial literacy. That's still very important. It's still very important to have financial literacy. And a good book to read is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Amazing book to read on financial literacy. You should all be reading. That's one thing I need to get through. I need to read more. We all need to read more, especially if you're going into business, because it just keeps you really on your toes. So financial literacy, in my view, tended to be the main thing. However, one thing that's been rebranded or retermed a word here is personal branding. Okay. Now, people think it's a new thing. It's not a new thing. It used to be called reputation. Your great grandparents that run their butchers and was the main butcher of the area, he's got personal branding. Like, just because it's called reputation or he was the guy, it's still the same thing. Just because he didn't have an Instagram profile with 10,000 followers and swipe ups doesn't mean he didn't have a personal brand. Everyone around that village knew who the hell that guy was. They knew, right, that's Barry, he's a butcher. I'm going there for my stuff. I'm going there for my meat. Like, same principle. So for me, now I find the personal branding has become massive to the point that, like, even my partner, even my girlfriend, right, her personal brand is growing by the day because of everything that she's doing. And now she's able to diversify. So once you've got that personal branding, you're able to go into other areas. You know, she started off on a private content sort of niche. Now she's going into like dog walking and all these other things because she's able to do that and influencing. So with me, I found that my music career was building a personal brand. I was able to get, 7,000 page likes, things like that, on TikTok and things. I've been doing my music on there, and on Instagram with 16,000. And these are numbers I'm just boasting about. They're relatively low compared to other people. But the important thing is that this whole influencer regime, the only good thing to take from it is this sort of motivation to get to the same sort of engagement standard. Because when you do that, when you start building up that personal brand, what you find is you can really delve into multiple areas. I'm working with a client at the moment called Jake Hillary in Northampton. I'll happily name him to further that personal brand. He's from Northampton. He's a barber. He's got like 7 or so barber shops. And his personal brand has grown so well, not just in the sense of having 20K followers on Instagram and all the rest of it, but as an actual, real thought-provoking leader in that city or that town. As a result, he's able to diversify. So now he's gone into a brand called Gent. So not only is it Gent Barbers, but Quarters Barbers, I think it was, but now he's gone into Gent Garments, which is a clothing company. After that, then he dropped the Gent and went to G Sports. So now he's doing home gym equipment. In his last 2.5 months, he's done tens of thousands of sales. I've literally seen it. So it's purely from having solid personal branding. And don't get me wrong, not everyone wants to jump on camera, and I get that. Not everyone wants to jump on a vlog like I do and say, swipe up to this, swipe up to that constantly. But it's just positioning yourself as that, instilling trust into your people, and building that personal brand and starting it now. Because I was starting to do my personal brand when I was a kid. Like, as soon as Facebook came about, like I got a fan page. And I had a couple of hundred on there and started just constantly posting my music. If you're an artist, post your art. If you're a marketer, post your sort of results. Like, keep posting what you're doing and your testimonials, and keep building that personal brand, because it will come back and hit you in abundance, in good wealth, and in recommendation. That's the main thing.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we're going to wrap up there. Thank you very much, Lloyd, for joining us.
No problem.
Think the takeaway message is proactivity. There will never be a better time to start than now. So get involved, all your entrepreneurs. And make sure to follow Lloyd Haines on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those social platforms. Also follow the University of Edinburgh Entrepreneur Society on the same. We're on YouTube most weeks, so tune in for our events and get involved. But yeah, thank you once again, Lloyd. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.